Before we begin today's story, let us know in the comments section what time and part of the world you are listening from. Also, if you enjoy today's story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin. The crisp autumn evening air wafted through the high-end district of Manhattan, where Le Bernardin stood proudly among other exclusive establishments. Inside, at a perfectly set table for two, Michael Wayne sat alone, his fingers drumming impatiently against the pristine white tablecloth. His Patek Philippe watch showed 8:45 p.m., 45 minutes past the agreed meeting time. Michael was not a man accustomed to waiting. As the CEO of Wayne Tech Solutions, one of the fastest-growing tech companies in the country, his time was precious, calculated in millions. Yet here he was, sitting alone at a table that Robert, his best friend since college, had insisted he reserve for this blind date. "She's perfect for you," Robert had said. "Smart, beautiful, and she won't take any of your usual CEO bullshit." Michael had reluctantly agreed, more to shut Robert up than anything else. Now, as he sat there, he was beginning to regret his decision. The waiter approached for the third time, a look of sympathy poorly concealed on his face. "Would sir like to order now?" Before Michael could respond, his phone buzzed. A text message appeared. "I'm so sorry, but I won't be able to make it tonight. There's an emergency at work that needs my immediate attention." "Rain check?" Michael's jaw clenched. He had sacrificed valuable working hours for this evening, hours he could have spent finalizing the merger documents for tomorrow's meeting. His fingers flew across the phone screen as he dialed Robert's number. "You've got some nerve," Michael spat as soon as Robert picked up. "Your perfect match just stood me up." "Wait, what?" "That's not like her at all." Robert's voice crackled through the speaker. "Look, Michael, sometimes things happen." "Save it," Michael cut him off. "This is exactly why I don't do blind dates. I don't have time for—" His phone beeped, indicating another incoming call. Michael glanced at the screen. It was James Chen, the CEO of Asia Core Technologies, regarding their pending merger. "I have to go, Robert. It's Chen." Without waiting for a response, Michael switched calls. "James, yes, I was just reviewing the merger documents." Absorbed in his conversation about stock valuations and market projections, Michael stood up, gathering his coat. He began pacing, as he always did during important calls, not paying attention to his surroundings. That's when it happened. His shoulder caught the elbow of a passing waiter, sending the expensive bottle of red wine the server was carrying cascading through the air. The crimson liquid arced gracefully before splashing across a beautiful emerald green dress worn by a striking brown-skinned woman seated at a nearby table. "Oh my God!" exclaimed one of her friends, a tall blonde woman named Natalie. The woman in the green dress, Chantel Davis, sat frozen, watching as the wine seeped into the fabric of her dress, her mother's dress. Michael, still engaged in his phone conversation, barely registered the chaos he'd caused. It wasn't until Natalie stood up, her voice sharp and clear, that he even looked their way. "Excuse me, are you not going to apologize?" Michael, holding his phone slightly away from his mouth, glanced at the scene. Without missing a beat in his conversation, he reached into his pocket, pulled out a thick wad of cash, and tossed it onto their table. "For dry cleaning," he said dismissively, before returning to his call and walking away. "Yes, James, the projected growth rates for Q3 are." At the table, Chantel sat stunned, her friends Natalie and Olivia equally shocked by the man's arrogance. "The nerve of some people," Olivia fumed, picking up the cash, "as if money can just fix everything." Chantel touched the wet fabric of her dress, her heart sinking. This wasn't just any dress. It was the last birthday gift her mother had given her before passing away 2 years ago. Today was supposed to be a celebration of her birthday, a chance to wear her mother's gift and feel close to her. Now, the dress bore an ugly red stain, a reminder of one man's thoughtlessness. "Here," she said, handing the money to their waiter. You deserve this more than we do." The incident at Le Bernardin marked the beginning of a chain of events that would unfold over the coming weeks. Just days later, Michael's world was thrown into minor chaos when his secretary of 5 years, Sarah, announced her resignation. She was moving to Chicago with her fiancé, leaving Michael with the daunting task of finding someone who could handle both his demanding schedule and his equally demanding personality. "I need someone exceptional," he told his HR director. "Someone who can keep up with my pace, who's available 24/7, who understands that in this business, there's no such thing as regular hours. And I want to interview them personally." Meanwhile, across town, in a modest apartment in Brooklyn, Freddie Martinez was preparing for what he hoped would be a life-changing opportunity. Fresh out of business school, with outstanding recommendations from his professors, Freddie had his sights set on the secretary position at Wayne Tech Solutions. He knew working for Michael Wayne could open doors that might otherwise remain closed to someone from his background. The night before the interview, Freddie meticulously pressed his only white shirt and black suit. They weren't designer labels, but they were clean and professional. He set 3 alarms, determined not to be late for the 9 a.m. interview, even though candidates were expected to arrive by 7 a.m. Fate, however, had other plans. The morning started with his usual Uber driver getting lost, forcing Freddie to attempt crossing the busy street to catch a taxi instead. In his rush, he failed to look both ways, stepping right into the path of an oncoming car. The screech of brakes filled the air, followed by a thud and a tumble. Freddie found himself sprawled on the ground, his white shirt now covered in street grime, a small tear visible on the back of his jacket. "Oh my God, are you okay?" A woman's voice called out, filled with concern. The click of heels against pavement approached rapidly. Freddie looked up to see a beautiful brown-skinned woman rushing toward him, her face etched with worry. It was Chantel Davis, though Freddie didn't know her name yet. "I'm so sorry. I didn't see you. We need to get you to a hospital," Chantel said, helping him to his feet. Freddie brushed himself off, wincing more at the state of his clothes than any physical pain. "I'm fine, really. But my interview." He checked his phone. 6:45 a.m. "I'm going to be late, and now I look like this." Chantel took in his disheveled appearance and the desperation in his eyes. Making a quick decision, she said, "My workshop is just a few blocks from here. I'm a fashion designer. Let me help you. It's the least I can do after nearly running you over." Before Freddie could protest, she was ushering him into her car, a sleek black Mercedes. Minutes later, they pulled up to a luxury apartment building with floor-to-ceiling windows. Chantel's workshop occupied the entire top floor, with racks of beautiful clothing and several working stations visible through the glass walls. "We don't have much time," she said, already moving through her collection. Her hands flew across the racks until she found what she was looking for: a perfectly tailored deep blue suit and a crisp white shirt. "Try these on." Freddie emerged from the changing room looking transformed. The suit fit him as if it had been made for him, the deep blue color making him look sophisticated and confident. "This is incredible," he breathed, staring at his reflection. "But I can't afford—" "Consider it my apology for almost running you over," Chantel insisted, already fixing his tie. "Now, where's this interview?" "Wayne Tech Solutions," Freddie replied, still admiring the suit. Something flickered across Chantel's face. Recognition? Perhaps displeasure, but it was gone before Freddie could be sure. "Let me drive you," she said, grabbing her keys. Despite their best efforts, Freddie arrived 10 minutes late. He was the last candidate to be interviewed, and Michael Wayne's reputation for punctuality was legendary. As Freddie sat in the waiting area, he couldn't help but feel that his chance had already slipped away, despite looking like $1 million in Chantel's suit. What he didn't know was that this suit, and the woman who had given it to him, would prove to be the key to not only his future, but to a story that was just beginning to unfold. When Freddie's name was finally called, his heart pounded against the exquisite fabric of his borrowed suit. The executive floor of Wayne Tech Solutions exuded power and success, all glass, chrome, and impossible views of Manhattan. He was led through a series of doors until he reached Michael Wayne's office, a corner sanctuary of modern design and minimalist furniture. Michael sat behind his massive desk, not bothering to look up from his computer screen as Freddie entered. "You're late," he stated flatly, his fingers still moving across the keyboard. "Yes, sir, I apologize. There was an incident this morning." "I don't care for excuses." Michael cut him off, finally looking up. "Punctuality is everything in this position. The other candidates arrived 2 hours early. Why should I even consider someone who couldn't manage to arrive on time?" Freddie felt his dreams slipping away, the position he'd spent weeks preparing for, the opportunity that could change his life, all crumbling because of a series of unfortunate events. But then he remembered Chantel's kindness, how she'd transformed him from a disheveled mess into someone who looked worthy of this office. Something about that memory gave him courage. "Sir," Freddie began, straightening his shoulders, "you shouldn't consider me because I was late. You should consider me because despite everything that went wrong this morning, getting hit by a car, ruining my original suit, I still made it here. Because I don't give up, even when circumstances are against me." Michael's expression remained impassive, but he had stopped typing. "Hit by a car?" "Yes, sir. While trying to find alternative transportation when my Uber got lost. But that's not important. What's important is that I'm here, ready to prove that I'm the best candidate for this position." Michael stood up, walking around his desk. "You're right. It's not important. And this interview is over. I don't need someone who—" He stopped mid-sentence, his eyes finally taking in Freddie's appearance. That suit. Freddie noticed the shift in Michael's attention. "Yes?" "The tailoring is impeccable. The cut, the fabric." Michael circled Freddie slowly. "Who made this?" In that moment, Freddie saw his opportunity. The same instinct that had helped him excel in business school kicked in. "I'd be happy to tell you, sir, after you give me a fair chance at this interview." Michael's eyebrows shot up, a mixture of surprise and amusement crossing his face. "Are you attempting to negotiate with me?" "I'm demonstrating my ability to recognize leverage and use it appropriately," Freddie replied, maintaining eye contact. "Isn't that a valuable skill for your secretary to have?" For a long moment, Michael just stared at him. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed. "Sit down," he said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. "Tell me about your qualifications, and then you'll tell me about that suit." The interview that followed was intense. Michael grilled Freddie on everything from his education to his family background, his technical skills to his ability to handle pressure. Through it all, Freddie remained composed, his answers clear and confident. Finally, Michael leaned back in his chair. "The suit. Who made it?" "A designer named Chantel. She's the one who helped me after the accident this morning. Her workshop is in the luxury apartments on 5th Avenue. Michael nodded slowly, then picked up Freddie's resume, studying it one last time. "You're hired?" he said abruptly. "And your first assignment is to set up a meeting with this Chantel. I want suits like that." Freddie's heart soared, but he maintained his professional demeanor. "Thank you, sir. When would you like me to start?" "Right now. Get me that meeting." 2 days later, Freddie found himself back at Chantel's workshop, this time as Michael Wayne's secretary. The security guard remembered him and waved him through with a smile. When he reached the top floor, Chantel was working on a dress form, pins held between her lips as she adjusted the fabric. "Freddie," she exclaimed upon seeing him, removing the pins. "How did the interview go?" "I got the job," he beamed. "Thanks to you and this amazing suit. Actually, that's why I'm here. My boss, Mr. Wayne, would like to schedule a meeting with you. He was very impressed with your work." Something flickered across Chantel's face, the same expression Freddie had noticed when he'd mentioned Wayne Tech before. This time, however, She couldn't hide her displeasure fast enough. "Mr. Wayne? Michael Wayne?" "Yes, he's very interested in having you make suits for him." Chantel was quiet for a moment, her fingers absently smoothing the fabric on the dress form. "When does he want to meet?" "Would tomorrow afternoon work? Around 2 p.m.? After a pause that seemed longer than it probably was, Chantel nodded. "Fine, tomorrow at 2. The next day, Michael arrived at Chantel's workshop precisely on time, Freddie in tow. They were greeted by Chantel's assistant and shown to a stylish waiting area. Michael looked around appreciatively at the displays of clothing and the expansive views of the city. "Impressive setup," he murmured to Freddie. "No wonder the suit is so well made." Before Freddie could respond, Chantel emerged from her office. She stopped dead in her tracks when she saw Michael, her expression hardening. Michael, for his part, showed no sign of recognition, the wine incident at Le Bernardin completely forgotten. "Ms. Davis," Michael said, stepping forward with his hand extended. "I must say, your work is exceptional. The suit you made for my secretary here is possibly the finest I've seen. I'd like to discuss having you create a collection for me." Chantel looked at his extended hand but didn't take it. "Mr. Wayne," she said, her voice cool and controlled. "With all due respect, I'm not interested in doing business with you." Michael's hand slowly lowered, confusion crossing his face. "I'm sorry? I said no. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have work to do." With that, she turned and walked back into her office, closing the door firmly behind her. Michael stood frozen, his face a mask of disbelief. In all his years in business, he had never been dismissed so summarily. Freddie shifted uncomfortably beside him. "Sir? Should we?" "We're leaving," Michael snapped, turning on his heel and striding toward the elevator. The ride down was silent, but Freddie could practically feel the waves of wounded pride emanating from his boss. That evening, Michael called his friend Robert, still seething from the rejection. "She didn't even give me a chance to make an offer," he complained, pacing his penthouse office. "She just said no and walked away." "Are you sure you've never met her before?" Robert asked. "Positive. I would remember meeting someone like her." "Someone like her?" "Someone so." Michael struggled for the right word. "Unprofessional," he finally said, though that wasn't quite what he meant. "Uh-huh," Robert said, sounding unconvinced. "And this bothers you so much because it's insulting. I'm offering her good business, and she just walks away? You know you could get suits from any top designer in the world, right? Why are you so hung up on this one?" Michael didn't have an answer for that. Or rather, he didn't want to examine too closely why he couldn't stop thinking about Chantel's dismissal, or about Chantel herself. Over the next few weeks, Michael launched what could only be described as a campaign to win Chantel's business. He sent Freddie back to her workshop multiple times, each visit with a different approach. First with a blank check, telling her to name her price. Then with a proposal for an exclusive line bearing her name. Each time, Chantel's response was the same, a firm no. The more she refused, the more determined Michael became. He found himself thinking about her at odd moments, during meetings, in the middle of the night, while signing documents. He told himself it was about the principle of the thing, about not letting someone dismiss him so easily. "You're obsessed," Robert told him over drinks one evening. "And not with her suits." "Don't be ridiculous," Michael scoffed, but his protest sounded weak even to his own ears. "When was the last time you put this much effort into pursuing anything, or anyone?" Michael stared into his whiskey, not answering. The truth was, he couldn't remember ever wanting something, or someone, so much that he was willing to face repeated rejection. It was unsettling, this feeling of not being in control. "Face it, my friend," Robert said, clapping him on the shoulder. "You're interested in more than her tailoring skills." "I just want to understand why she won't work with me," Michael insisted. "It doesn't make sense." "Maybe you should try asking her instead of throwing money at her," Robert suggested. "You know, like a normal person having a normal conversation?" Michael dismissed the idea outwardly, but it took root in his mind. Why did she refuse him so adamantly? What had he done to earn such clear disdain? The questions kept him awake at night, along with memories of her fierce expression when she'd rejected him, the grace with which she moved through her workshop, the way her presence seemed to fill any room she occupied. One morning, after another sleepless night, Michael called Freddie into his office. "Cancel all my appointments for the next week," he instructed. "Sir, I need you to find out everything you can about Chantel Davis, her schedule, her habits, where she goes, what she does. I want to know why she won't work with me." Freddie hesitated. "Sir, with all respect, maybe this isn't the best approach." "Just do it," Michael snapped, then caught himself. "Please," he added more softly. As Freddie left the office, Michael walked to his window, looking out over the city. Somewhere out there, Chantel was probably working in her studio, creating beautiful things, steadfastly refusing to have anything to do with him. The thought both frustrated and intrigued him. He was Michael Wayne, CEO of Wayne Tech Solutions, used to getting whatever he wanted through sheer force of will and resources. But for the first time in his adult life, he was learning that some things, some people, couldn't be bought or impressed into submission. And despite himself, despite all his attempts to deny it, he was becoming more fascinated with Chantel Davis by the day. What he didn't know yet was that this pursuit would lead him down a path he never expected, forcing him to confront not just Chantel's rejection, but his own past actions and the person he had become. The man who could buy anything was about to learn that the most valuable things in life couldn't be purchased at any price. Sorry to cut in, but I noticed 90% of our viewers watch our stories till the end, but eventually forget to subscribe. Please, if you're enjoying our story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It helps our stories get recommended to more hearts across the globe. Thank you. Now, back to our story. The Metropolitan Museum of Art sparkled under the autumn evening sky, its grand entrance adorned with elegant decorations for the annual Tech Innovation Gala. The event was a gathering of the city's elite, entrepreneurs, innovators, and influential figures in the technology sector. Michael Wayne, as one of the leading figures in the industry, was naturally in attendance. He stood near one of the ornate pillars, nursing a glass of champagne, his custom-made tuxedo, not quite what he wanted, he noted bitterly, fitting him perfectly yet somehow feeling incomplete. The past few weeks had been frustrating. Every attempt to understand Chantel Davis's rejection had led nowhere. Freddie's investigations had revealed little beyond her professional accomplishments, her rising status in the fashion world, her innovative designs, her exclusive clientele. Nothing to explain her adamant refusal to work with him. "You're brooding again," Robert commented, appearing beside him. "You know, for someone who claims this is just about getting a suit made, you sure spend a lot of time looking miserable about it." Michael was about to retort when movement near the entrance caught his eye. His breath caught in his throat. There, descending the grand staircase, was Chantel Davis. She wore a stunning gold dress that seemed to capture and reflect every light in the room. The fabric moved, like liquid metal around her curves, the design both elegant and bold, clearly her own creation. Her hair was swept up, revealing the graceful line of her neck, and she carried herself with an air of quiet confidence that made heads turn. "Close your mouth," Robert murmured, amused. "You're staring." Michael quickly composed himself, but he couldn't take his eyes off her. She moved through the crowd with ease, stopping occasionally to greet people she knew. Each smile she gave, others made something twist in his chest, a strange mixture of jealousy and fascination. "Go talk to her," Robert urged. "But for God's sake, don't mention suits." "I can't just." "Yes, you can. In fact, here's your chance. She's headed to the bar, alone." Before Michael could protest, Robert gave him a not-so-gentle push in Chantel's direction. Taking a deep breath, Michael made his way to the bar, trying to appear casual. Chantel was waiting for the bartender when he approached. Up close, her dress was even more remarkable. Intricate beadwork caught the light, creating patterns that seemed to dance with her movements. "White wine, please," she told the bartender, then tensed slightly as she sensed Michael's presence beside her. "Make that too," Michael said to the bartender, then turned to Chantel. "The beadwork on your dress, it follows the Fibonacci sequence, doesn't it?" Surprise flickered across her face, replacing the guarded expression she usually wore around him. "You notice that? The spiral pattern. It's mathematical perfection." He gestured to the intricate design. Nature's golden ratio translated into fashion. Brilliant. "I didn't expect a tech CEO to recognize sacred geometry in evening wear," she said, accepting the wine the bartender offered. "There's probably a lot you don't expect about me," Michael replied softly. "Would you give me a chance to prove that?" Chantel studied him for a moment, something shifting in her dark eyes. "You haven't mentioned suits once in this conversation. I'm learning to appreciate other things," he said with a small smile, "like the way mathematics and art intersect in unexpected places." A hint of a smile played at the corners of her mouth. "Keep talking." For the next hour, they found themselves deep in conversation about everything except clothing. Michael discovered that Chantel had studied both art and engineering in college before following her passion for fashion design. She learned that he had originally wanted to be an architect before the tech world pulled him in. They discussed the intersection of art and technology, the beauty of well-executed design, and the way innovation could appear in the most unexpected places. "The thing about technology," Michael was saying, gesturing enthusiastically, "is that it's not just about coding and circuits. It's about solving problems, about seeing patterns and possibilities where others don't." "Like fashion," Chantel nodded. "It's not just about making pretty clothes. It's about understanding form and function, about creating something that enhances the wearer's life in some way." The orchestra began playing a new song, a slow, romantic melody that filled the grand hall. Michael found himself swaying slightly to the music, watching as other couples moved to the dance floor. "Would you dance with me?" he asked suddenly, surprising himself as much as her. Chantel hesitated, and for a moment, Michael was sure she would refuse. But then she set down her wine glass and extended her hand. "Why not?" As they moved onto the dance floor, Michael was acutely aware of every point of contact between them. His hand at her waist, her palm against his, the occasional brush of her dress against his legs. The golden fabric of her gown caught the light with every movement, creating a warm glow around them. "You're a better dancer than I expected," Chantel murmured as they moved in perfect sync to the music. "Another thing you didn't expect about me?" Michael smiled, gently turning her in time with the melody. "You're full of surprises tonight, Mr. Wayne." "Michael," he corrected softly. "Please call me Michael." Their eyes met, and something electric passed between them. Michael was suddenly very conscious of how close they were, of the subtle scent of her perfume, of the way her hand felt in his. The rest of the room seemed to fade away, leaving just the two of them in their own private world of music and movement. As the song drew to a close, neither of them moved to step away immediately. They stood there, still in dance position, the last notes hanging in the air between them. "I should thank you," Michael said quietly. "For the dance? For giving me a chance to be something other than the arrogant CEO you clearly think I am." Chantel's expression softened slightly. "You want to know why I won't make suits for you? More than anything. Then have dinner with me tomorrow night. Le Bernardin, 8 p.m. Le Bernardin at 8. I'll be there," he said. She stepped back, breaking their connection. "Don't be late," she said, then turned and walked away, leaving Michael standing on the dance floor, watching the play of light on her golden dress until she disappeared into the crowd. The next evening, Michael arrived at Le Bernardin 15 minutes early, his mind still spinning from the events of the previous night. He had barely slept, replaying their dance in his head, analyzing every word of their conversation, trying to understand the shift that had occurred between them. The maitre d' led him to a table, the same table, where Chantel's dress got stained with wine weeks ago. As he settled into his chair, he noticed something else familiar about the setting, but couldn't quite place it. Chantel arrived precisely on time, and Michael's breath caught in his throat for the second time in 2 days. She wore an emerald green dress, elegant and simple, but there was something about it that nagged at his memory. As she sat down, he noticed a faint discoloration on the fabric, a barely visible stain that looked like. The memory hit him like a physical blow. The wine, the waiter, the cash he had so carelessly thrown on the table, everything came rushing back with crystal clarity. "Oh my God," he breathed, horror dawning on his face. "That night, it was you." Chantel nodded slowly. "Now, you remember. The wine, your dress. I just threw money at you and walked away." Shame colored his face. "I didn't even apologize." "No, you didn't," she agreed quietly. "You were too busy with your phone call to even look at me." The same waiter from that night approached their table. Michael recognized him now, and Chantel ordered a bottle of the same wine that had been spilled. "I've been so focused on why you wouldn't make me suits," Michael said, his voice thick with regret, "that I never stopped to think about. I never even remembered. I'm so sorry, Chantel. I was absolutely horrible that night." "Yes, you were," she said, but there was no anger in her voice now. "Do you want to know why this dress means so much to me?" Michael nodded, unable to speak. "It was the last birthday gift my mother gave me before she passed away. She had it made specially, said green was always my color." Chantel smoothed her hand over the fabric. "I was wearing it that night to celebrate my birthday, to feel close to her. And I ruined it," Michael said softly, "with both the wine and my behavior." "The wine stain was an accident," Chantel said. "It was your response that showed your character, or what I thought was your character. Throwing money at the problem as if that could fix everything, not even bothering to look at the person you'd hurt." "I was a different person then," Michael said, then corrected himself. "No, that's not true. I was exactly who I'd allowed myself to become. Someone who valued time and money over basic human decency. Someone who thought everything could be solved with a checkbook. And now?" Michael met her eyes across the table. "Now I understand why you kept refusing me. Every time I tried to throw money at you to make suits for me, I was being that same person. The one who thought he could buy anything, or anyone." Chantel's expression softened. "You know what impressed me at the gala last night? Not once did you try to buy my attention or my approval. You just talked to me, saw me as a person, not a service to be purchased." "I see you now," Michael said quietly. "I see how remarkable you are. Not just your talent, but your strength, your principles. The way you refused to let money sway you from what you believed was right." The waiter arrived with their wine, and Chantel raised her glass, to seeing people for who they really are, both the good and the bad. Michael raised his glass to meet hers, and to second chances. A smile played at the corners of her mouth. "We'll see." As they clinked glasses, Michael felt something shift inside him, a fundamental change in how he saw not just Chantel, but himself. The man who had carelessly thrown money at a wine-stained dress was gone, replaced by someone who understood that the most valuable things in life couldn't be bought: respect, forgiveness, and maybe, just maybe, the chance at something more meaningful than he'd ever known. "So," Chantel said after a moment, her eyes twinkling, "about those suits." Michael laughed, a genuine warm sound that surprised even him. "I don't care about the suits anymore." "Well, I do, but I care more about getting to know you. The real you, not just the talented designer everyone sees." "Good answer," she smiled. And for the first time since they'd met, there was no barrier between them, no past hurts, no misunderstandings, just two people discovering each other anew. The evening stretched on, filled with conversation, laughter, and a deepening connection that neither of them had expected. When they finally left the restaurant, Michael knew that something profound had changed. He had walked in hoping to understand why Chantel wouldn't make him suits, and he was walking out understanding something far more important. Sometimes the greatest transformations come not from what we gain, but from what we learn to value differently. After their revelatory dinner at Le Bernardin, something shifted between Michael and Chantel. The next evening, she invited him to her workshop for his first fitting. The city lights twinkled through the floor-to-ceiling windows as Michael stepped out of the elevator into her creative sanctuary. Chantel was waiting, her workspace illuminated by warm, ambient lighting that cast a gentle glow across the fabrics and sketches surrounding them. She had changed from her usual elegant business attire into something more casual, a flowing silk blouse and tailored pants that somehow made her look even more alluring. "Welcome to my real world," she said, gesturing to the space around them. "This is where the magic happens." Michael looked around with new eyes. Before, he had seen this place purely as a means to an end, somewhere to get the suits he wanted. Now, he saw it as an extension of Chantel herself. Every detail spoke of her artistic vision and meticulous attention to detail. "It's beautiful," he said softly, running his fingers along a bolt of fine wool. "Like everything you create." Chantel smiled, pleased by his genuine appreciation. "Shall we begin? Take off your jacket and stand here." She indicated a spot near the windows. As Michael followed her instructions, Chantel gathered her measuring tape and pins. The atmosphere shifted subtly as she approached him, tape measure in hand. There was an intimacy to the process that neither had anticipated. "Arms out," she instructed, her voice slightly lower than usual. Michael complied, acutely aware of her presence as she moved around him. Her fingers were gentle but precise as she took his measurements, each touch sending small currents of electricity through his body. She worked in silence, occasionally making notes in a small notebook. "You're very still," she commented, measuring across his shoulders. "Most clients fidget. Most clients probably aren't as aware of their tailor as I am of you," Michael replied softly. Chantel's hands paused briefly before continuing their work. "And how aware are you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Michael turned his head slightly, meeting her eyes. "Aware enough to know that my heart beats faster every time you touch me. Aware enough to notice that your hands trembled slightly when you measured my chest. Aware enough to realize that this isn't just about suits anymore, if it ever was." Chantel's breath caught audibly. She stood before him, measuring tape hanging forgotten in her hands. "Michael, tell me you don't feel it too," he said, turning to face her fully now. "Tell me I'm imagining this connection between us." Instead of answering, Chantel reached for a decanter of whiskey she kept in her workspace. "Drink?" she offered, her voice slightly unsteady. "Please." She poured 2 glasses, handed him one, then moved to lean against her work table. "You're right," she said finally. "This isn't just about suits anymore." Michael took a sip of whiskey, savoring the smooth burn. "Then what is it about?" "You tell me," she challenged. "You're the one who kept pursuing me even after I turned you down repeatedly. Why?" Michael set his glass down and moved closer to her. "At first, it was about my wounded pride. Then it was about solving the mystery of why you refused me. But somewhere along the way," he paused, gathering his thoughts. "Somewhere along the way, it became about you. Just you. Your strength, your principles, your talent, your beauty, inside and out." Chantel's eyes searched his face, looking for any sign of insincerity. "And when did you realize this?" "Probably at the gala, during our dance. Or maybe earlier, but I wasn't ready to admit it to myself." He took another step closer. "When did you start seeing me as more than the arrogant CEO who ruined your dress?" A small smile played at her lips. "Probably when you noticed the Fibonacci sequence in my design. It showed me there was more to you than money and power." She set her glass down beside his. "Or maybe when you finally remembered and truly apologized for that night at Le Bernardin. It showed me you were capable of growth, of change. They were standing very close now, the air between them charged with possibility. Michael reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted to, and tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. His hand lingered, cupping her cheek. "Chantel," he whispered, "I think I'm falling in love with you." She leaned into his touch, her eyes closing briefly. "This is probably a bad idea." "Probably," he agreed, his thumb stroking her cheekbone. "Does that mean you want me to stop?" Instead of answering, Chantel closed the distance between them, pressing her lips to his. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, but quickly deepened as years of built-up tension dissolved. Michael's arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her closer as her hands slid up his chest to his shoulders. The kiss seemed to last forever and no time at all. When they finally broke apart, both slightly breathless, Chantel rested her forehead against his. "We should probably talk about this," she murmured. "Probably," Michael agreed again, but made no move to release her. Instead, he trailed kisses along her jaw, down her neck, drawing a soft gasp from her lips. "Michael," she breathed, her fingers tangling in his hair. "Yes? Take me upstairs." The words hung in the air between them for a moment, before Michael pulled back slightly to look at her. "Are you sure?" In response, Chantel took his hand and led him toward the spiral staircase that connected her workshop to her private living space above. Each step felt charged with anticipation, their fingers intertwined, hearts racing in sync. What followed was a night of passion and tenderness, of discovery and connection. They learned each other's bodies as thoroughly as they had learned each other's minds over the past weeks. Every touch, every kiss, every whispered word of affection built something deeper between them, something neither had expected to find. The morning light filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows, painting patterns across the rumpled sheets. Chantel woke first, the reality of the previous night settling over her like a weight. She slipped out of bed carefully, pulling on a silk robe, and moved to stand by the windows. Michael found her there a few minutes later, the city spread out below them like a glittering carpet. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, pressing a kiss to her shoulder. "What are you thinking?" he asked, feeling her grow contemplative. "That this complicates everything," she admitted. "You're still my client. I'm still making your suit. Is that all you're worried about?" Chantel turned to face him, looking at him seriously. "Michael, we come from different worlds. You're used to taking what you want, to having everything work on your schedule. I'm used to creating things slowly, carefully, making sure every detail is perfect. Maybe that's exactly what I need," he said, tucking a stray curl behind her ear. "Someone to slow me down, to help me appreciate the details I've been missing. And maybe I need someone to challenge me, to push me out of my comfort zone," she conceded. "But this, what happened between us? It wasn't supposed to happen this way." Michael looked her in the eyes. "Do you regret it?" "No," she said immediately, then laughed softly. "That's what scares me. I don't regret it at all." "Then don't overthink it," Michael said, pulling her close again. "Let's just take it one stitch at a time, as you would say." Chantel smiled against his chest, but he could feel her uncertainty. "The suit will be ready in a week," she said finally. "Give me that time to think, to figure out what this means for both of us." Michael wanted to protest, to tell her they didn't need time to think, that what they had was real and right and worth pursuing immediately. But he remembered the man he'd been just weeks ago, the one who thought everything could be rushed and bought and controlled. That man would have pushed, would have tried to force a decision. The man he was becoming knew better. "A week," he agreed, kissing her forehead. "But know this, I've never been more certain of anything in my life than I am of my feelings for you." They sealed the promise with a kiss, soft and sweet in the morning light. Later that week, Chantel delivered Michael's suit to his office, a masterpiece of tailoring that fit him perfectly. He took a picture of himself in the suit and sent it to Chantel, showing her how impeccable her work was. He later texted, "Dinner at my place?" Okay, she replied. That evening, Michael discovered a new side of himself as he prepared dinner in his penthouse kitchen. He had always relied on his personal chef, but tonight he wanted to cook for Chantel himself. He was so focused on not burning the risotto that he didn't hear her arrive early. "Something smells amazing." Her voice came from behind him, making him jump slightly. "You're early," he said, turning to find her leaning against the doorframe, looking beautiful in a casual dress. "I can leave and come back," she teased, moving into the kitchen. "Don't you dare." He reached for her, then remembered his hands were covered in food. "I'm a bit of a mess." "I like you messy," she said, stepping closer. "It makes you more human." She reached up to brush some flour from his cheek, but the simple touch quickly turned into something more as their lips met. The kiss deepened, becoming more passionate until the timer on the stove buzzed insistently. "The risotto," Michael muttered against her lips. "Can't have you burning our dinner," Chantel laughed, pulling away. "Need help?" Despite his protests, she joined him in the kitchen, and they worked together seamlessly, as if they'd been doing this for years. They ate at the kitchen island, talking and laughing, sharing bites from each other's plates. It was domestic and intimate, in a way neither had experienced before. Their relationship deepened. They went on dates, attended events together, spent quiet evenings in each other's spaces. The media did have a field day when they were first photographed together, but Chantel handled the attention with grace, and Michael fiercely protected her privacy. The next few months were a whirlwind of happiness. They moved Chantel's things into Michael's penthouse, creating a space that reflected both of them. Their relationship became stronger every day, each learning to accommodate the other's needs and quirks. Michael learned to respect Chantel's need for creative space and time alone, while she learned to handle the public aspects of being with someone of his status. 6 months later, Michael took Chantel on a surprise trip to Paris. He had arranged for a private after-hours tour of the Louvre, knowing how much she loved art. As they stood before the Mona Lisa, Michael turned to her. "You know, Leonardo da Vinci was more than just an artist," he began. "He was an innovator, an engineer, a visionary who saw no boundaries between art and science, like you." Chantel looked at him curiously. "Where are you going with this?" Michael took her hands in his. "When I first met you, I was all about technology and business. I saw everything in terms of profit and loss, efficiency and results. But you showed me the beauty in life, the art in everything, the importance of creating something meaningful, the value of true connection." As he spoke, he slowly lowered himself to one knee, pulling a small box from his pocket. Chantel's breath caught as he opened it, revealing a stunning diamond ring. "Chantel Davis, you've changed my life in ways I never imagined possible. You've made me a better man, a happier person, and I want to spend the rest of my life showing you how grateful I am for that. Will you marry me?" Tears streamed down Chantel's face as she nodded. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I'll marry you." The ring slid perfectly onto her finger. He had secretly taken measurements while she slept, and they sealed their engagement with a kiss that echoed through the empty halls of the Louvre. They were married a month later, in an intimate ceremony on the rooftop of Chantel's workshop, surrounded by their closest friends and family. Chantel designed her own dress, of course, incorporating the Fibonacci sequence that had first brought them together. Michael's suit was her creation as well, a perfect match to her dress. As they exchanged vows under the setting sun, with the city skyline as their backdrop, both reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From a ruined dress and wounded pride to true love and understanding, their story was one of transformation and growth.